Thanks for having me here today. So I'm here to talk to you all about astrobiology and what kind of astrobiology we could think about doing at the moon. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide, I did want to give you an idea of who make up the astrobiology program at NASA. Here on this slide, I've got David Grinspoon, who's the senior scientist for astrobiology strategy, Lindsay Hayes, who's the program scientist for astrobiology, and then me, who I'm her deputy. And then if we go to the next slide, we also have Daniela Scalise and Melissa Curvin, who are our communications and engagement lead and early career programs lead. So if you're interested in any of the things we're talking about today, please do feel free to reach out. I'll make sure my email makes it into the chat somehow. If you go to the next slide. Just a little bit about what the astrobiology program is at NASA. We do a variety of things. One of the biggest is that we support research programs. So these are research awards to do astrobiology research at US institutions. Primarily, those programs are exobiology, habitable worlds, ICAR, which is our large interdisciplinary consortia for astrobiology research, and P-STAR, which are awards to do analog work with astrobiology research questions, maybe a little bit of tech maturation there, but definitely out in the field doing something with instruments and advancing technology, advancing field operations, and advancing science. And then there are lots of other programs that we connect to in the Planetary Science Division RNA programs, the technology programs, our PDART, which is all about data archiving and tools associated with data, as well as many other planetary focused research programs. So we're involved in all of those. And then we have what we call research coordination networks. These are community-led groups that are focused on various areas of astrobiology. The people who are involved at the co-lead and the steering group level in those research coordination networks are funded researchers from NASA awards. But then the things that they plan for the benefit of the community are open to anyone interested in those various things. So you can see the 5 of them over there: Nexus, Enfold, Now, PCE3, and Life are our 5 RCNs currently. And you can also see how they connect to some of the missions that we have going on. So we do research, but then we also are supporting a large variety of missions that are supported in the Planetary Science Division that are tackling astrobiology relevant topics, whether that's at Mars or asteroids or thinking about the outer solar system. We are interested in supporting those. And then lastly, I have 3 images here: the Astrobiology Primer, the Astrobiology Graphic Novel series, and the Astrobiology Strategy. And these are just to highlight that we do a variety of other activities around engagement and strategic planning for the astrobiology community. So we're a small group of individuals with a big task ahead of us. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, I'm just going to touch on this very briefly because all of the things I'm going to be talking about touch on these 3 sciences. So I'm here representing astrobiology, which is focused on the search for life and habitability elsewhere in the solar system. But it's related to and it connects to many of the other topics that are being discussed around space biology and planetary protection. And these are very complementary to the science of astrobiology, but they have slightly different goals. So while we see many community members that are involved in research or tackling questions in these areas, the purpose of those goals are a little different. And so just to say very briefly, space biology, we think of that as kind of trying to support Earth life elsewhere, right? So how do we get things to grow in space? How do we get things to grow on the moon? And then we think about planetary protection as preventing the unwanted contamination from terrestrial life elsewhere. And so these are, like I said, all three related, but slightly different. And I will be using these three colors throughout some of the presentation to highlight some topics related to the moon and astrobiology and what we might be able to tackle there. So next slide. All right, so in the Moon to Mars strategy and objectives, which I know you all talked about earlier today, there is this one lunar planetary science goal that I'll highlight. There are many lunar planetary science goals that do relate to astrobiology, but I'm just going to highlight this one, which is all about advancing our understanding of the origin of life in the solar system and identifying potentially habitable environments, how we got to those habitable environments, what drives planetary processes, how those have evolved over time, and then evidence of past or present life in the solar system beyond Earth. And while this objective and goal is very much focused on Mars, and it's identified as being most applicable to Mars, there are some great activities we can do at the moon that can also support this goal. So if we go to my next slide. Okay, so there are three particular astrobiology topic areas that I think are most relevant to speak to today. That is the moon as an abiotic testbed for life detection, as a record of the early Earth and the inner solar system, and trying to understand human presence impact on astrobiology at exploration sites. And I highly recommend you check out this lunar astrobiology paper that was written by Aaron Grunstall et al. Way back in 2007. I know that sounds a little outdated, but there's still a lot of great work in that is still relevant today. So if you want a more thorough review, go check that out. If you go to the next slide, please. I'm just going to jump into the table from that article that highlights several of the questions, key scientific questions that we might be able to look at or tackle at the moon. And like I said, I've highlighted these related to that space biology and planetary protection color scheme. So if it's not highlighted, it's a good astrobiology question. And if it's in yellow or green, those are really our space biology and planetary protection questions. So you can see they're kind of mingled in here together, which is fine. But there's a lot of different scientific questions around geology and prebiotic chemistry and microbiology that we can do at the moon. And if we go to the next slide, you'll just see the continuation of this table and just a couple more, mostly planetary protection and space biology questions, but a couple topics that are still related to astrobiology and thinking about making sure that whenever we search for life, we're searching for life without too high of a risk of our false positives, and testing out methods perhaps at the moon. So go to the next slide, please. Okay, so thinking about the moon as an abiotic testbed for life detection. So the figure I have here is the cold scale. This was put out just a couple years ago in Nature, and it basically is a classification of life detection. It's basically a scale to take you from level 1 of detecting a signal known maybe to be as a result of biological activity, and then eventually assessing that to be truly something that is telling you that there's life there. And so there's this cold scale. There's also, not pictured here, ladder of life detection, and a lot of information on standards of evidence. There's a workshop on that that I recommend you check out. And these are all things that are laying out the pathway for taking data and then understanding how to interpret that data to actually make conclusions about whether or not you've detected life. What's great about the moon is that we don't think that there's any life there, right? So whenever we're thinking about testing instruments or things that we might want to do, experiments we might want to do, taking those experiments to the moon and testing them out there gives us a great place to make sure we're not going to end up with false positives. In the planetary decadal, which is called Origins, Worlds, and Life, or OWL, they identified several things related to this as strategic research questions, and I've just highlighted one here in particular on characterizing the range of abiotic processes that define abiotic baseline, so A biosignatures, and how you might be able to use those to prevent generating false positives. So this is definitely something we're interested in, definitely something the community thinks is important to do. And the lunar test bed is a great place to do that. So this could be a great place for us to test any sort of astrobiological or search for life experiment prior to taking it to another place like Mars or further out in the outer solar system. And I just have the reference there for the cold scale. So we go to my next slide, please. Okay, so the second area where, oh, and this got a little messed up. Sorry about that. I hope you all can read that. So the second reason we might want to go to the moon for astrobiology is that it's a record of early Earth and the inner solar system. And once again, the decadal captured this amongst many other strategic research questions about how the moon is, a really great inventory of the early solar system, right? It has not been undergoing the same sort of planetary processes, the plate tectonics that we see on Earth. And so the moon has the potential to hold the lost history of early Earth. So we're interested in that in terms of looking at the organic inventory and what is there and what that can tell us about the organics that may have been delivered to early Earth and the early solar system. And then we're also interested in searching for Earth meteorites. So impact ejecta that would have left Earth early on and landed on the moon and preserved potentially some really great artifacts of what life might have been like on early Earth. So there's some very cool, possibilities in that. And there's a nice abstract that was put into the science definition team for Artemis by Longo et al. In 2020, kind of talking about this and some of the benefits of doing that. So another cool thing to do at the moon for astrobiology. And if we go to the next slide, one of the last things is understanding human presence and its potential impact on astrobiology at exploration sites. This is very much tied to also thinking about planetary protection, but what I want to focus on is thinking about this in terms of scientific integrity of samples. So whenever we're looking at samples, we want to be cognizant of what we might be introducing to those so that whenever we're making conclusions about what we found, we understand what was actually there in place. And so the moon is a place where we might be able to study and quantify the influence that human explorers have on an environment before we work to send crew to Mars to do very similar sorts of experiments. And then I just included here a nice article by Jen Eigenbrod et al. About contamination control and how important that is for life detection missions to kind of drive home that point. And then if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to sum up here by pointing out that we are kicking off work on developing our astrobiology strategy. So we last did this in 2014, and there have been a couple of reviews by the National Academies of that strategy since then. One was in 2018. But now that we have the decadal, the planetary decadal, as well as many decadals from the other divisions, astrophysics decadal has come out, heliophysics decadal will be coming out soon, biological physical sciences decadal, all of these, we think it's a great time to go ahead and take a look at our astrobiology strategy and get that updated. So that effort is being kicked off. And if you go to the next slide, where that currently is, there is an effort that we're calling NASA Dares 2025. And this is their projected timeline. This is an effort being worked by by David Grinspoon. And they are planning on putting out a request for information very soon. So that should be hitting inboxes once it's ready for prime time from NASA. And then with that, I will end.